Gemini is no longer a chat. It is a multimodal workbench where text, image, voice, documents and search converge, and the real question is who governs that convergence. Gemini should no longer be read as a chat window. It is a multimodal workbench where text, images, voice, documents and live search meet in one interface. Once a tool can read, look, listen, search and help you decide at once, the question shifts, not what the machine can do, but what the human must still decide. This essay defends one thesis. The value of Gemini is not faster answers. It is learning to coordinate different languages, words, images, audio, data, without surrendering judgment. The problem is epistemic. When a tool seems to solve everything, the user confuses fluency with truth and speed with thought. The hypothesis is that 21st century literacy is now multimodal. It demands formulating precise questions, contrasting sources, turning an image into an argument, converting documents into decisions, and asking for evidence before accepting output. Without that, a polished answer is just elegant noise. Used well, Gemini is a laboratory, a place to compare, visualize, translate, plan and verify. Used poorly, it becomes a substitute, replacing reading, memory, writing and judgment with the look of completion. The same interface can sharpen thinking or erode it. The difference is never the model, it is criterion. Education on AI must train students to separate four things often collapsed into one: what the model says, what the data permits anyone to affirm, what the task requires, and what the responsible person defends. These are not the same claim. A fluent paragraph is not evidence, nor a confident answer a conclusion. From this follows a method, not a set of tricks. Before accepting any output, ask 5 questions: what source it uses, what it omits, what alternative exists, what evidence is missing, and what human decision stays open. This is the difference between organizing information and actually deciding. Mastering Gemini is not memorizing shortcuts. It is building a discipline, a clear objective, sufficient context, recoverable sources, critical review, and visible human authorship. The literacy of this era is multimodal, critical and operational at once. The promise is not less thinking, but criterion that scales. Topic: development, change of interface. Gemini is not a chat. It is a multimodal workbench. Text, image, voice, documents and search now combine in one surface. The decisive question is no longer what it can do, but how that combination is governed. Key concepts: text, image, voice, data, sources. The underlying idea is, from the prompt to the system. Central thesis: a more powerful tool demands more thinking, not less. When AI summarizes, compares and creates, the user must decide what counts as evidence and what is merely fluency dressed as truth. Key concepts: evidence, fluency, context, decision, risk. The underlying idea is, speed is not understanding, fluency is not truth, and a confident answer is not yet a conclusion. Augmented reading: a summarized document still needs to be interpreted. A summary helps locate patterns, but it does not replace deep reading, your own questions, or a real contrast against the objective at hand. Key concepts: summary, pattern, question, contrast, purpose. The underlying idea is, read with intention, image and argument. Seeing is not understanding, an image must be reasoned. The model can describe a chart or a photograph, but the user must still interrogate it for bias, for absence, and for the context it quietly leaves out. Key concepts: chart, bias, context, absence, meaning. The underlying idea is, look critically, not passively. Search. Searching with AI does not cancel the need for a source. A useful answer must be traceable, without a recoverable origin. The output is a suggestion to test, never a conclusion you can defend. Key concepts: origin, date, author, data, limit. The underlying idea is, trace before you believe. Real work. Gemini turns chaos into a plan only when there is an objective. Meetings, notes, documents and emails become action only when a clear operative question exists. Organizing inputs is not the same as deciding. Key concepts: goal, task, priority, owner, date. The underlying idea is, organizing is not deciding. Education. The student must ask for explanation, not just an answer. AI earns its place when it makes reasoning visible. The steps taken, the alternatives, the possible errors, and the conditions under which it holds. Key concepts: steps, alternatives, error, validity, review. The underlying idea is, explain before you deliver. Risk. Multimodality also multiplies the ways an answer can fail. When text, image and search are at once, the result can feel more convincing precisely because it integrates several formats into one confident surface. Key concepts: trust, bias, blend, noise, authority. The underlying idea is, the integrated is not always true. The look of a system can hide a long chain of unexamined assumptions. Method: 5 questions to ask before accepting any output. What source does it use? What does it omit? What alternative exists? What evidence is missing? What human decision still remains open and unmade? Key concepts: source, omission, alternative, evidence, decision. The underlying idea is, ask better, accept slower. Authorship. Using Gemini well means keeping responsibility human. The model can produce drafts and maps, but final judgment must stay with the person who understands the consequences and is willing to sign for them. Key concepts: draft, map, review, consequence, signature. The underlying idea is, a responsible human remains. Synthesis. Literacy is now multimodal, critical and operational at once. To master Gemini is to coordinate languages, verify evidence, and turn information into action with judgment, not less thinking, but criterion that scales. Key concepts: languages, verify, action, judgment, learning. The underlying idea is, augmented criterion, not automation. If you want to go deeper, the book Gemini, The Definitive Guide to Mastering Google's Artificial Intelligence Tool in 2027 is now available on Amazon. The purchase link is in the description.